Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Vedika Bahel, and here's the top stories from across the continent. Ghana becomes the fifth African country to agree to take in US deportees. The country's president confirmed it had reached a deal with Washington to take in third-party nationals from West Africa as a regional agreement allows visa-free travel. Activists aboard the global Flotilla say they've been attacked twice whilst in Tunisian waters. They're set to depart for Gaza in the coming days. Our correspondents in Tunisia bring us the latest. And could giant pouched rats be the future of detecting tuberculosis? In Tanzania, one NGO has been training them to do so and say the creatures have already sniffed out tens of thousands of cases. Thank you for joining us. We begin this bulletin in Ghana, where 14 West Africans deported from the United States were received before being sent on to their home countries. President John Mahama said the country had agreed to take in West African nationals due to a regional visa-free agreement. It makes Ghana the fifth African nation to take in US deportees, a move that lawyers and activists have questioned in its validity. Clarice Fortuny explains.
It has become one of US President Donald Trump's hallmark policies, expulsions to third countries as part of his crackdown on illegal immigration. Ghana is now the latest to accept deportees. President John Mahama confirmed that the first group had already arrived in Accra under a new bilateral agreement.
So if they decided to travel from US to Accra, they don't need a visa anyway. So if you're bringing our colleague West Africans back, I mean, that's okay. And so I think that agreement has been activated, and a first batch of 14 nationals came. Several of them were our Nigerian brothers.
The policy has divided opinion on the streets of Accra. Supporters framed the move as an act of Pan-African solidarity, invoking Ghana's historic role as a leader in the region. They say the deportees bring valuable skills learned abroad that could benefit the economy.
We can find all the African nationality here. So these people can increase Ghana, the economic of Ghana, and also these people have knowledge about what they do over there. They can come and apply it in our country. They can increase our the economic and development.
But critics warn of more pressure on jobs and a rise in crime.
The prices are that we are going to face job competition from them. We are going to, prostitution is going to go on in crime rates is going to increase. We have been seeing those things for the past 5 years. Anytime you see armed robbery in Ghana, prostitution, if you go to Sege, you see a lot of foreign nationals there.
The US has also sought similar agreements with Rwanda, Eswatini and South Sudan as part of a wider push to discourage illegal immigration. But not all African countries have complied. Nigeria has refused to accept migrants who are not its own citizens.
To South Sudan now, where the Vice President Riek Machar has been charged with murder, treason and crimes against humanity for his alleged involvement in attacks on a military base in March that killed over 250 soldiers. The charges relate to an attack by a militia called the White Army, which the government claims was acting under Machar's orders. The country's president, Salva Kiir, also announced Machar has been suspended from government. There's fears these charges will further destabilize South Sudan and edge it closer to a return to civil war. Thursday marked the third and final day of hearings at the International Criminal Court, where prosecutors presented evidence to support their charges against fugitive Ugandan rebel leader Joseph Kony. Kony, who's evaded capture for decades, is facing 39 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity as the founder and leader of the Lord's Resistance Army. According to prosecutors, this period was rife with rape, torture and child abduction, with survivors still struggling to rebuild their lives decades later. One survivor spoke to our regional correspondent, Juliette Monti.
In Uganda, hundreds of people followed the ICC hearings on crimes committed by Joseph Kony and the Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA. For Sylvia Achan, survivor and president of the NGO Golden Woman Vision, the proceedings bring hope for justice.
You have a voice for the voiceless. So we feel like it's very important that they will have hope for justice. because the perpetrators who committed the crime, they need to be brought to book so that this thing doesn't happen again.
The LRA, a guerrilla movement notorious for its violence, is responsible for the deaths of 100,000 people and the abduction of 60,000 children. Massacres, torture, child soldiers, forced marriages, and sexual slavery. Unspeakable acts of brutality that have deeply scarred Ugandan society. For Sylvia Achan, justice would also mean rehabilitation for survivors.
The stigma is still there because we, the war survivors, are being called names. We are being called killers. We are forced to carry heavy luggages and being tortured and being we were the wives to the rebels. You see, so it had not been easy even up to now. The stigma still exists in community.
The ICC does not allow trials in absentia. Joseph Kony, still on the run, can only be brought to justice if he is captured.
An international aid flotilla seeking to break Israel's blockade of Gaza is set to leave Tunisian waters in the coming days. It's not specified which port they'll be heading to or when it will depart, but it's been a difficult few days for the activists on board the global Sumud flotilla after being subjected to 2 consecutive drone attacks, according to organisers and video footage. This report from our correspondents on the ground.
Boats are finally leaving the port of Sidi Bou Said. They're heading to Benzert in Tunisia's north, where they will join another group of boats coming from Barcelona. After several delays due to technical and logistical issues, the boats will then deport for Gaza. At the port in Sidi Bou Said, where some boats are still docked, people are impatient to leave.
We waited a lot and prepared a lot. We have attended trainings, and we are ready physically and psychologically. We are only waiting for the final leave.
Organizers say that the delays are partly due to 2 drone attacks that targeted 2 different boats on Monday and Tuesday night. In a statement released on Wednesday evening, the Tunisian Ministry of Interior spoke of a premeditated attack but did not mention drones. The attacks haven't discouraged passengers.
This is to break the morale within the participants. It is also to instill fear amongst us. But we want to send a strong message to the apartheid state of Israel that we will not be deterred.
The flotilla says it's focusing on its humanitarian goal and leaving the investigation to Tunisian authorities.
We all know the scenarios and what could happen. We just have to keep going. We are a peaceful mission. We have no weapons on board. We have baby formula, food, aid, water, and we need to break this siege.
In the days leading up to the departure, Tunisians collected more donations for the flotilla, a significant commitment for those who won't be joining.
I'm very frustrated that I can't do more. So the least we can do is to help these people who are leaving. We're not sure if we're going to make it. They are risking their lives. So the least we can do is to be in solidarity and help them as we can.
The flotilla aims to reach besieged Palestinians by mid-September. The boats are carrying several hundred tons of humanitarian aid.
Let's head to South Africa now, where men are now able to take their wives' surname. The country's highest court overturned a law Thursday that barred them from doing so, saying it amounted to gender-based discrimination and violated the constitutional right to equality by treating men and women differently. Now, for the ruling to take effect, Parliament will now have to amend the Births and Deaths Registration Act. With the latest, here's Tom Canetti from Cape Town.
So this has become really a politically charged case. The Constitutional Court today, in their ruling, said that the fact that a woman must assume the surname of their husband is a practice that came with, quote, the arrival of the European colonisers and Christian missionaries and the imposition of Western values. So on one hand, this ruling has been regarded as really a win for progressive politics in South Africa, but on the other, there's been critics saying that it could harm cultural traditions in some communities. This case came about when 2 couples wanted to challenge the law. In one case, it was a man who wanted to assume the surname of his wife, and in the other, it was a man who wanted to combine or hyphenate his surname with his wife's surname. The Constitutional Court ruled that indeed the law was unconstitutional based on gender discrimination. and has given Parliament up to 2 years to amend the law to align with the Constitution. Until then, the Constitutional Court has put in temporary provisions to allow both practices to take place.
And finally, in Tanzania, for over 2 decades, a non-profit group has been training giant pouched rats to detect landmines, trafficked wildlife, or even survivors of natural disasters. Now, these little creatures are being trained to sniff out tuberculosis thanks to their powerful sense of smell. Though it's not an official diagnostic tool, the NGO says the rats have detected over 30,000 cases previously missed between 2007 and 2024. Clemens Waller brings us more.
This rat is training for life-saving missions. It learns to sniff out landmines in the mornings, and in the afternoons, it practices detecting cases of tuberculosis.
We have positive samples, which we know, and negative samples. The rat has to show us the positive samples and read for the set time. After succeeding, the rat moves on to the next stage, where it begins the actual work.
The non-profit organization Apopo has, for 28 years, trained thousands of rats to detect buried bombs or poached wildlife. The group expanded into TB detection in 2007 with its rodents deployed in Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Mozambique. The group works with 80 hospitals in Tanzania, collecting samples daily and bringing them to the lab rats. Research suggests the animals are picking up on 6 specific compounds in positive TB samples.
What they do is take samples which the healthcare provider or our laboratories fail to detect TB in and test them. In those samples, we often find people who have TB, so they help us in identifying TB cases.
In sub-Saharan Africa, only about half of TB patients receive a diagnosis, with false negatives remaining a persistent issue in detecting and suppressing the disease. The organization's rats can scan 100 samples in 20 minutes and have been able to detect 30,000 cases that had been missed. However, as the WHO does not classify the animals as primary diagnostic tools, but rather as a second line of defense, any positive samples detected by the rats must be confirmed by humans before treatment can be administered.
That's all we have time for. This concludes today's edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you do so again. Stay tuned to France 24.
Dans notre coup de cœur, je vous emmène à la rencontre d'un transporteur de bonheur. Avec sa planche électrique, sa valise, sa bonne humeur contagieuse, Femi the Scorpion invite les badauds à se déhancher dans les rues de Paris. Chorégraphe, danseur, chanteur, il transforme chaque coin de bitume en fête improvisée. On va se laisser tenter.